Welcome back to the Eat Your Greens with Dr. Black podcast. This is the podcast where we learn effective strategies that work in everyday, real life to make health doable. If you're a first-time listener, I'd like to personally welcome you. I'm Dr. Black. I'm a pediatrician and a lifestyle medicine physician, and I am so happy that you chose to spend some of your precious time with me today. I want to start this episode with a story. I've talked a little bit about this on previous episodes. When my daughter was very young, she was on the ketogenic diet for epilepsy. This is a much stricter form of keto than people follow for weight loss. So sugar and really carbs of any kind was pretty much completely off the table for her from the age of about 2 to 5. For her birthday, I would make her a cake out of Play-Doh. You start with one of those round foam thingies that florists use, and you wrap it in Play-Doh and then decorate it to look like a cake. We would sing the birthday song, she got to blow out her candles, and then she would play with it instead of eating it. And honestly, this worked great because she was little. She didn't know what she was missing. But most people who follow a carb-restrictive diet do. It's one of the reasons why people who go on a low-carb diet to lose weight, or maybe they were told that it would help their diabetes, aren't able to stay on it. Food isn't just fuel. It's culture, it's comfort, it's birthdays and holidays and shared meals. And when people try to follow a very low-carb diet long-term, what often gets sacrificed isn't just bread or rice. It's quality of life. In my last episode, I talked about refined sugar, what excess amounts do to your health, how quote-unquote natural sweeteners like cane sugar or maple syrup compare to high-fructose corn syrup, and which sweeteners are actually the least harmful. Today, I want to keep that carbohydrate conversation going, but I'm going to move beyond sugar to other foods that are often demonized. Your rice, potatoes, pasta, those other starchy foods. Now, to be clear, yes, absolutely. Too much refined, highly processed carb can harm your health. These foods digest quickly, they're easy to overeat, they spike your blood sugar and lead to energy crashes, and they're stripped of fiber and important nutrients. But every story has another side. Many high-carb, starchy foods are staples in ancestral and cultural diets around the world. They're comforting, they're delicious, and for many people, they're an affordable and accessible source of energy. Low-carb diets actually can benefit some people. I mean, my daughter's seizures were much better with the ketogenic diet, and at the time, it was worth it. There's also some scientific evidence behind some of the claims about weight loss and metabolic health, at least in the short term. But they can be overly restrictive, socially isolating, and often rely heavily on high-fat meat and dairy. That's a dietary pattern that, in large, well-designed studies, is strongly associated with higher cardiometabolic risk and mortality. So the real question isn't, should we eat carbs? It's this: how do we make carbs work better for us? And that's what today's episode is about. I'm going to walk you through practical, evidence-based ways to smooth out blood sugar spikes, avoid that post-carb crash, and even tweak the starchiest foods to make them healthier. It's time to stop treating carb like a dirty word and instead learn which carbs are the most beneficial and a few hacks to boost the health benefits of the others. Now let's start by describing the problem with high-carb, starchy foods and why many people find low-carb diet appealing. Do I need to define what starch is? I feel like I do. You know I can't start an episode without some basic definition, so let's do that. Carbohydrate, or carb for short, is an umbrella term that includes starch. All starches are carbs, but not all carbs are starches. Other carbohydrates include sugar, see the last episode, and fiber, see almost every other episode I've ever produced. When I say high carb or starchy food, I'm talking about the white fluffy stuff, the bread, white rice, potatoes, pasta, crackers. Most of these are refined carbs where that fiber has been refined out, as with white flour and white rice. But whole starchy foods, things like potatoes and corn, are also included. When we digest these, the starch gets turned into glucose. I talked about fructose from fruit in the last episode. For this episode, I'm only focusing on glucose. Starchy foods tend to digest fast. As a consequence, your blood sugar rises quickly, along with an almost instantaneous matching rise in insulin. Recall that insulin is the hormone that helps take that glucose out of the blood and put it into the cells where it's used for energy. Then that blood sugar drops almost as fast as it went up, resulting in the crash. We've all experienced this, that brain fog, mood swings, fatigue that come with a sugar crash. We also feel hungry a lot sooner than we probably otherwise would. Too much glucose, too fast, stresses out our metabolic engines, and the excess gets turned into fat, which is deposited under our skin, but also in places like muscle and liver. That drives insulin resistance, diabetes, and fatty liver disease. We can compare this process to a torrential rainfall. I live in Texas, and we go from drought to flash flooding overnight, right? The ground can't soak it up fast enough, the creeks and rivers rise too fast, and then you get that flash flood. The problem isn't the water, or in this case, the carbs. It's too much, too fast, with no floodgates to slow the rise. Here's the message I want you to take away from this episode. You don't need to fear all carbs. You do need to reduce the amount and slow them down. Think more of a gentle, steady rain instead of that flash flood. So here's 5 easy things that you can do to game the system so that you can enjoy your carbs without actually flooding your system. Hack number 1, keep the structure intact. Leave the skin on the potatoes and the fruit. I can't even remember the last time I peeled a potato. The skin has a lot of the fiber and, in the case of fruit, many of the potent antioxidants. You can wash everything first in water with a little baking soda added to remove any pesticide residue or dirt. Try to choose whole grains over the refined ones. I think it was Dr. Greger who said, when choosing food, aim for nothing bad added and nothing good removed. It's a good, easy rule. Think of whole wheat bread, brown rice instead of white, steel cut oats instead of instant oatmeal. An intact structure equals more fiber, equals slower digestion, which equals a smoother rise in blood sugar and no crash. And while we're talking about slowing digestion down, here's hack number 2. In addition to fiber, make sure your meal has some protein and healthy fat. Fiber and fat slow stomach emptying or gastric emptying. This means you feel full longer and the starch is digested more gradually. Protein increases satiety. That helps you to stop eating when your body's had enough. So let's take smoothies, for example. You wanted to have a healthier breakfast, so you opted for a green smoothie. But you notice it doesn't fill you up like that bacon and egg breakfast taco that you usually eat, and you're starving again a few hours later. Here's the hack. Add a handful of walnuts or a few slices of avocado for the fat and some protein, either some yogurt or a protein powder. If you're going with the protein powder, try to choose one without a lot of added emulsifiers and sweeteners. Personally, I buy the Anthony's pea protein powder. That's just my preference. This is not a sponsored episode. When you do this, you'll notice that you feel more satisfied and stay full longer. Some of my other favorites, I like to add a blend of nuts and seeds like chia and flax to my oatmeal. Or one of my favorite workday lunches, baked sweet potato with toasted pumpkin seeds and avocado. And of course, the staple of many ancestral diets and one of my childhood favorites growing up in southern United States, beans and rice. Use extra virgin olive oil to cook your aromatics, the onions, garlic, things like that. Hack number 3. Here's a crazy easy thing that you can do to make high-starch foods like potatoes and rice healthier. Just let them cool down before you eat them. That's it. Cooking and then cooling potatoes, rice, and pasta changes the starch into resistant starch, meaning it resists digestion. Resistant starch acts a bit like soluble fiber. Rather than being digested in the small intestine, it makes its way to the large intestine where it feeds and supports gut bacteria. Do I need to tell you again about the health benefits of supporting your gut microbiome? It's a lot like the rainforest. The more diverse and numerous the species are, the healthier the rainforest is. Soluble fiber, resistant starch, and things like polyphenols found in colorful berries and greens support the diversity of the gut ecosystem, just like the frequent gentle rain supports the plants and trees in the rainforest. The rainforest, in turn, supports the health of the entire planet. In this case, you. Now, you don't have to learn to like eating cold food. Much of the resistant starch formed during cooling is retained after reheating. This is another reason that meal prepping might be good. Cook the starchy foods ahead of time and then store them in the fridge or the freezer for later. And I don't want to forget to mention green bananas, which are another great source of resistant starch. Hack number 4 is another one for the microbiome. Have you ever heard of Macs? No, not Big Macs, not my favorite computer. I'm talking about MAC, microbe accessible carbohydrates. These are high-carb foods that are fermented by the bacteria in the gut into short-chain fatty acids. Another name for short-chain fatty acids is a postbiotic. These are the molecules produced by those gut bacteria that go out to the rest of the body and support your health. They do all kinds of things, like support insulin sensitivity and metabolic health. They regulate the immune system, support brain and cognitive health, and even help lower your cholesterol. The resistant starches from hack number 3 are a type of MAC. Other examples include corn, sweet potatoes, pears, and apples. Just don't forget to leave the skin on. The 5th and final hack is something that I was skeptical about when I first heard about it, but it turns out there is some evidence to support it. That's the concept of food sequencing. The premise is this: the order in which you eat your food matters. Start with the non-starchy vegetables. That's going to be a green salad, your sides like your broccoli, Brussels, cauliflower. And then next, eat your protein and fat. Usually that's the main entree: fish, tofu, meat, whatever you prefer. Save the starchy, carby stuff for last: the mashed potatoes, the rice, or the dessert. In studies, sequencing your meal components like this was shown to significantly blunt post-meal blood glucose spikes, especially in people with insulin resistance or prediabetes. This works because, as I talked about earlier, fiber and fat slow digestion, and the gut is also sort of prepped before the glucose arrives. There's also a reasonable chance that you'll naturally eat less of the starchy stuff if you're already full from the other things. Although we almost all have that second stomach for dessert, where no matter how stuffed you are, you can always find room for the sweet stuff. That's not just a Thanksgiving joke. There's a real physiologic mechanism behind that I'm not going to discuss today. If your meal is a one-pot dish, something like a casserole or soup where everything is mixed together, just try starting with a small salad or vegetable appetizer. So let's zoom back out to the big picture. Carbs aren't evil, but the amount we eat, and especially the amount of highly processed carbs with the fiber removed, does matter a lot. When we eat a lot of refined starch all at once, it's like that torrential downpour. Blood sugar rises fast, insulin rises fast, and then comes the crash. But starchy foods don't need to be eliminated to avoid that outcome. They just need to be handled more thoughtfully. Instead of a flood, we want a gentle, steady rainfall, one that the body can actually absorb and use. Fortunately, you don't need to go on a restrictive, low-carb diet to make that happen. You can enjoy carb-rich foods, support more stable blood sugar, and actually feel satisfied by using the simple strategies you learned today. Keeping the structure intact, pairing carbs with protein, fiber, and healthy fat, letting starches cool to create resistant starch, feeding your gut microbes with MACs, and even something as simple as changing the order you eat your food. None of these are rigid rules, they're tools, and you don't have to use them all at once. Small changes add up. The real mindset shift is this: don't fear the carb, but be strategic with it. Slow it down, pair it well, feed your microbes, choose the hacks that fit your life. This is about making health doable without giving up the foods you love or the moments that make eating meaningful. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to eat your greens. Please be aware that this podcast provides general health information about nutrition and feeding of infants and children and is meant for educational purposes only. It's not intended to replace the important relationship between a parent, child, and pediatrician. If you have concerns about your child's nutrition, health, or growth, please consult your doctor.